We will wait for another few seconds. People are logging in continuously. I hope I'm audible to everyone. I think we can begin now. So I will just begin by sharing. And this is a short intro for our keynote speaker, Mr. Rafael Angel Mendoza. Welcome, Rafael. So Rafael is known to everyone. His posts on social media are so thought-provoking, and he is here today to talk to us about how assessment criteria strands serve as threads to weave a memorable MYP tapestry. Rafael is an experienced IB continuum coordinator. He has worked in 3 IB regions since 2005 as a Lang and Lit and language acquisition teacher, department head, and a curriculum coordinator. Along with being an IB leader, he has participated in the design of the teacher support material for the IB MYP next chapter. In addition, Rafael is an independent concept-based learning trainer who loves to guide, support, and empower students and teachers with best practices. He's a strong advocate of creating language-rich learning environments that help all learners participate in the classroom. Welcome, Rafael, and welcome again to all our participants. Thank you for being here. I will quickly take you through some housekeeping announcements. So this is a 1-hour session, and presentation of this will be shared later on. In case of any difficulty, please write to mypjobalike.noida@pathways.in and kindly use the chat feature to share and interact with us. This session will be recorded, and it would be really nice if we keep our videos on for effective learning. That will help us also, look at you and be motivated to, we'll motivate each others to interact more and more. So I will hand over now to Rafael without any delay.
Thank you very much. So it's very nice of you. Thank you for the introduction. Every time that people read things that I have done, I think what they remind me of is that the happiness that I've had of being a learner for a long time. I'm particularly happy to be with you today because it's in Mother India. So every time that schools in India invite me to work, they bring me back to the time that I was working in India, which automatically makes me happy and makes me younger. One thing that was not mentioned in the introduction is that I am a buttered chicken, dal makhani, and chola bhatura fan. So if you had met me when I was in India and you found me at a restaurant or eatery and you looked at my table, these would be things that you would normally find. Every I judge the quality of an Indian restaurant around the world if they have chola bhatura. And trust me, those that love it understand what I mean, the flavor, the heat, how much it burns, the chili, the oil. I will one day start a chola bhatura restaurant only of that. So thank you for joining me. I hope that what I am going to share with you triggers some aspects of self-reflection and community reflection in you. What I will be sharing with you is something that happened in two of the contexts in which I was working. And upon thinking about a way to frame it for my team, the use of threats and what we can do with them, and thinking of a tapestry as something that reflects aspects of culture, aspects of identity, things that we value, things that represent us, is what made me think of this title. So today, in this reflection, as I would like to call it, we are going to be reflecting on awareness, our own awareness as MYP educators. We're going to be reflecting on affinity. Many times I have experienced an MYP that is treated like the DP, and I say this respectfully. And what I mean by this is like in groups of subjects, each subject dealing with its own universe, but rarely looking across and then trying to figure out what makes us similar. And finally, we are going to reflect on the idea or the concept or the standard of culture. And hopefully we will gain an idea of about the way that we do the MYP, the way that we implement the MYP, and what that says about our culture. So if you don't mind, I would like to ground this reflection by sharing with you how this idea came to be. This idea was born out of tension, really. That's the truth. It was born at a moment when I felt powerless. I had no idea how to make something happen, and my team was stressed. And I am speaking about IDU planning. Every good idea that I have had in the past has to do with IDUs. I have a deep respect for these things, and for that I don't underestimate them. And I have discovered that when we plan an IDU, that meeting reveals so much about our culture, but not as teachers only, but as learners. We will have the subjects that say, oh, no, I am not ready for that. Or we will have the subjects like, yeah, I will do it, I will do it, I will do it. And then you will have the subjects that are flowing in between to see with whom they get attached. So I have seen that the teachers that embrace this beautiful aspect of the core of the MYP, and these teachers that still feel a little bit reticent to join the adventure. So they reveal a lot of things, not only about our capabilities, but also about our desire to continue working. This also led me to understand that looking for connections can be an authentic waste of time. And I say that because of this. I have been in so many meetings where we are trying to find connections in the curriculum to develop IDUs, 3 or 4 hours wasted with one connection or 2 connections, and then somebody finds a connection here and there. I now believe that if we want the IDUs to be powerful, they have to be planned in advance and they have to be consistent. And the reason why I say that, my friends, is that if we keep thinking about different ideas for different IDUs every day, then we are offering our students a different MYP curriculum every year. Instead, if we plan by definition, by design, specific IDUs throughout the MYP journey, students will have a consistent, rich curriculum with IDUs, and then every other IDU that we plan is just a gift. And then every other practice that we have concerning IDU will be yet another gift. The IDUs are part of the core, and I now believe also that if we don't have this particular feature in the MYP, our experience is lacking something. So this was the tension that I was having. This is what made me think, what do I do to help my team understand this better? And the part that made this reflection important to me is that we knew that when we identified a connection, we knew the content that we had to share or we had to blend. We knew the concepts that we want to put in a relationship and to have students explore them. But there was this lack of understanding of what the other subject wanted. In the old IDU guide, I'm speaking about criterion A, interdisciplinary grounding, which is very important. This is where the 2 subjects negotiated and try to understand what they wanted to get out of this experience. And what I noticed in myself and my colleagues is that we did not know exactly how the other subject or subjects would be cooking with the learning experience. And for this particular criterion A, disciplinary grounding, there was only one strand, demonstrating factual, conceptual, and procedural knowledge. And when I read that strand, for some reason, my brain started working. Factual, conceptual, procedural knowledge. Factual is the content. The concepts are the concepts that grounds our topics. And then this part, procedural knowledge. Everything started to make sense. Yeah, this is ATL. And then I saw, okay, so what is procedural knowledge in INS, for example? And that's criteria B, C, and D. And what can be procedural knowledge in science? That can be criteria B and C. And what can be procedural knowledge in mathematics? Oh yeah, that can be criteria C and D. So then I started reading the descriptors, the strands of this sets of these criteria of these subjects. And then I found like, this is interesting. And this is how it all came to be. My attempt of getting my team to try to understand what the other subject may want in this interdisciplinary experience pushed me to learn about the subject. Because what was scary is in my head, it was very clear to me what I wanted students to experience, but my colleagues did not see that, and neither did I see what they wanted. But to really ground the two disciplines, we needed to have the same amount of understanding, not only about the IDU experience, but about our subjects too. And this brings me to the urban legend of the NYP is complicated. Is it really? Or do we make it complicated? Many times, it's great to have a problem and start looking for ideas here and there. But we know that every idea that we bring into the NYP just makes it bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So I started using what the NYP gives us. It gives us general guidelines from principles into practice. They gives us pedagogical guides. They gives us teacher support materials. They give us research papers. And they give us other type of resources for different areas. So this is all that I had to work with. I didn't seek for any other book, any other author, any other tool. Because I had no budget, I had to figure out what to do with this. And believe me, my friends, in every connection that I try to make, everything brought me down to these three things: factual, conceptual, and procedural knowledge. Everything brought me down to these three things that are at the core of that one strand in disciplinary grounding. So I said, let's give it a shot. Let's give it a shot. And I said to myself, if teachers join the NYP, it must have been for a reason. And I looked at the model and I prepared my pitch. And I'm going to give you my pitch now. This is how I introduced this idea of doing something with what we have. Teaching in the NYP is a choice. We choose the school. Nobody told us to do it. Yes, we did a job, but we chose the school. And if the school promotes and implements the NYP, we have to respect that. It's just part of our integrity as educators. That means that when we choose to teach in the NYP, we want to develop interdisciplinary mindedness. So I'm going to explain my model from the outside to the inside. That means that I should be interested in what's going on in other subjects, in personal projects, in IDUs, in services learning, in the library. I should not be in my own bubble in my subject. This is part of the mindset that I started thinking about when it came down, when I started figuring out, why should we care about IDUs? Why should we care about being better NYP teachers? I also thought that if I want to teach in the MYP, I should be in pursuit of relationships, because the model has been designed for interdisciplinary connections. And that is, I think, in every guide of every subject in the first pages when they talk about the MYP. So we have to make an effort to look for these relationships. And these relationships should be based on harmonization, because there needs to be harmony in every subject and in everything that we do. But in order to make that happen, we need to be empowered by curated collaboration. And I would like us to pay attention to this adjective, curated. Curated collaboration, not meeting for meeting, meeting with a purpose, meeting for an outcome. And once we have as a collection of meetings with specific products, with specific outcomes for specific purposes, curate the ones that really add value to our lives as teachers. Because I keep thinking, if we do not enter the MYP with the mindset of the student, with the mindset of a student, of a learner, stagnation is going to be part of our experience. So we have 8 subject groups. Each subject group has 4 assessment criteria. So that means that in total we have 32. And if we think that every subject criteria has between 4 and 5 strands, we have 120 plus strands. So that means we have 8 types of thread, 32 colors, and 120 different widths of thread. What can we do with that? What can we do? And as I already told you, we can weave scarves, we can weave sweaters, we can weave tapestries, we can do so much. So the question was, what can we do with only these ideas? And this is where my inquiry took me, my friends. It took me to help my team understand what goes on in other subjects. We spent some time reading the strands of other subjects, and strands became a word that I was pronouncing in almost every meeting, because I really wanted to have comprehensible input for my team. If you're a language teacher, you know what I mean by comprehensible input. I wanted them to really see the value in it. So I needed to repeat it over and over and over. And also I wanted us to see connections. I wanted us to see connections across subjects, but not only in terms of content, not only in terms of concepts, in terms of this procedural knowledge. And my hope was that we got to move beyond this idea that, you know, if we do IDUs, we do services section, we are an MYP school. Great. How can you move beyond? How can this be part of the organs of your institution? How can this be part of the apps of the intellectual software in your school? And then I came across this idea. Again, thinking about students and thinking about of ourselves as students. A student performance is the product of the interaction between nature and nurture. And I became fascinated by it, nature and nurture, the nature of the MYP. The nature of the MYP, it's a unique program. It's a unique program. It's like a unique recipe for a dish. And nurture. So what can we nurture? But I'm a language teacher. So first I had to look for synonyms, because if I could not explain the word nurture in one way, I knew that I would need synonyms to help me. And all of the synonyms that I found were beautiful. Advocate, assist, fortify, help, incite, promote, support. You can read them by yourselves. And what I saw in all of these concepts are elements of our culture, things that we have to constantly do in order to make something happen, things that we have to include in our dialogue constantly in order for them to become habits that we treasure, things that we have to defend with shield and sword in order for us to understand the value. Things that we have to do with ourselves in the same way that we do with students. Things that we have to foster in our parents in the same way that we do it with our students. Things that administration needs to foster in our culture, in our systems, so that we all understand that this is not just an excuse. This is not something that emerged out of nowhere, but this is at the core of who we are. And I want to take it further. So then I went to students, because the idea behind this is that I wanted students to be at the core of the center. So I needed their insights. And I asked them, can you tell me how you know, how you feel that learning is happening? And these are their answers, my friends. And I'm going to give you 1 minute reading time, and I will read aloud as well, so that we see what students in this former school of mine in China said about what they thought or when they felt learning was happening. They felt that learning was happening when they hear and use a common language. And the context for this particular idea was about the way we talk about ATLs in the classes. When they see that teachers understand concepts in the same way, they were speaking about formative assessment. Formative assessment is not the same for every teacher. So they needed that consistency. When they see that different teachers use similar tools, because that reduces the amount of effort that they have to put in learning how to use a tool. When teachers point out connections to other subjects that they may not see, and that we see because of our expertise, because of our experience. When we teachers use ideas from other subjects to ground or enrich our subjects. When teachers place the same value to different practices, and these are some of these practices: ATL skills, feedback, services action. Students notice that these things were not the same. And when teachers mention work that happened in other subjects to help them remember skills or ways of working. So our students wanted to see that we were aware about what's happening in our school, that we were not just inhabitants of our classrooms. And if you look closely, regardless of the subject that you teach, if you look at the core, at the essence of these points, you will find assessment strands. So with this awareness that I had now for myself and that I had brought to my team, I started identifying what were those curated collaboration moments. So I said, okay, let's start by what brings us together. Let's start by the things that all of us have to do as MYP educators. And these are some of the things that I came up with. Some of the things that, with the help of my thinking partners, I was able to achieve or to figure out. As you can see, this was not a me effort. It emerged from collaboration. It emerged from a group of people thinking, trying to find something to work with. So how can we design language sophistication inquiries? If we want to work with language, we know that in our assessment criteria, there is a strand, there is a criterion that addresses language. So I am not suggesting that we do IDUs with this. I am suggesting that we have a collaboration moment in which we discuss how we can do this together, how we can add language sophistication from the perspective of our subjects. We have this. We have different subjects pursuing the same goal. So why can we not come together and share how we do it, so that I go with 20 more ideas than I had if I had only regarded my subject? How can we encourage interdisciplinary thinking? It's great to bring this big word to students, interdisciplinarity, transdisciplinarity. They're wonderful words for us as educators, but as I am a language teacher, and those of us who are language teachers understand that if students do not use the word in significant context, they will never get it. That if students never experience the meaning of a word in context, they will never get it. So why don't we show them when we want interdisciplinary thinking to happen? Why don't we announce an activity and say, in this activity, you are going to practice skills of math, skills of art, skills of design. We can do that if we equip ourselves with the language of concepts too, with the language of assessment strands too. How can our productions help others to learn? And this is a connection for services action, by the way. That means that the productions that happen in any subject can help students, or other people in the community to learn. And the strands that you see in front of you are only some strands that we identified, that team and I, when we were thinking about that. But I am pretty sure that if you or your team, or with some thinking partners of yours, you spend some time thinking, you will find connections to make this happen. Connections that that team that I had with me could not find. How can we support each other to enhance our communication tasks, design skills? So this is a question, for example, that we could ask for a PD in the afternoon. What language elements do you take in consideration when you produce a written or oral assessment product to assess, when you produce the rubric? So language and literature teachers, think about that. Language acquisition teachers, think about that. Science, INS teachers, think about that. And every other subject group, think about that too, and share it. And then share the strands too. And this very simple question for collaboration not only help us to learn about how other subject groups design their assessment rubrics for written and oral productions. We will also see how they see written and oral communication. We will become aware of the extent to which we are incorporating interdisciplinary thinking in our subjects, and we will see gaps that they may have, where our subject, they contribute. And all of these will be represented by strands in more than 2 subjects. I guarantee you this. How can we encourage interdisciplinary connections? One student once asked me, what is the difference between a 7 and an 8 when we assess a production? And as I think you may guess, I went to the strands and I said, like, you see this word? Exemplary, extraordinary, unique. Like, that's what you need for an 8. Like, an 8 goes beyond what I could possibly expect naturally in this task. So you have to go beyond this to make your piece unique. So a way of making things unique is by bringing in connections with other subjects, just extending it. And science criterion D, INS criterion C, and these strands of the arts can help. And as I said before, there are other ways of doing it. There are other ways of making it happen if we only allow for time for it to happen. if we only find connections in other strands, in other subjects. Another question that you can ask in your meetings, how can we, I apologize for the typo here, how can we retrieve strategies to promote application of specific skills? So what are some strategies that we can brainstorm on to help remember? What do you do to summarize information or data in mathematics? We can ask the students that. If we need a specific skill in our subject and we know where that skill may happen, we can always ask our students to retrieve. How do you do this in math? How do you do this in science? How do you do this in the arts? And again, that also suggests that we need to know what happens at the core of the task that we want. How do you make sure you are writing for your target audience? In every subject of the MYP, students have to produce something. And if you use grasps, you know that students need to have an audience for that. So if you ask them, how do you do this in language acquisition? How do you do this in English language arts or English language and literature? They will give you hints on how we do it, but you should know which subjects require students to do this thinking. I believe that in INS, they also have something related to audience and context. As in design, when they produce the brief for their clients. Why is it important to consult and use a variety of sources when we produce an informative text? If the informative text is the task that you are pursuing, this can be the opening question when you launch that assessment. And then you can ask the students, how do you do it in English language, Lang and Lit? How do you do this in language acquisition? And they will give you the skills. And even in art, what do you do with the information that you obtain from investigating other types of art? Every subject within their strands, within their assessment criteria, have tools that we could use. We should not feel alone. We should not seek outside the MYP as the first instance. Go inside the things that we have. And if you don't find it there, then go outside. But I guarantee you, in most of the IB documents, if we read them as inquirers, we will find the strategy, we will find the tool. When scanning a text, what do the visuals tell you about the message in the text? We know that when we read for pleasure, reading for pleasure is a very different skill than when we read text, scientific texts. It's a very different skill than when we read factual information like in a historical essay. It's a very different skill that we use when we look at graphs. And in a lot of these text types, we have visuals, different types of visuals, shapes, graphs, as I mentioned, figures, etc., etc. So we use the micro skill of scanning in different ways in different subjects. So if we see that in our text, we have graphs and we have bars, why don't we talk about science a little bit? Why don't we talk about mathematics? We should not be afraid. This is at the core of the MYP. The program was designed for students and teachers to identify interdisciplinary connections. But this will not happen unless we create the scenario for them to happen. How can we figure out what students can transfer from? We know that transfer requires prior knowledge for it to move. And we know that in order for us to become aware of the fact that transfer is happening, we need to measure it. So where does the prior knowledge that students need to successfully complete a task come from? Does it only come from our subject? Or are they also borrowing from other subjects? So if we know the strands, the assessment strands that other subjects have, and we are aware a little bit about the units that they have studied before, we can always help students just by saying, remember what you did in INS in this particular unit, transfer from it. If you have the time, you can even have the students talk about those skills and then help them pick the skills or the conceptual understanding that you need them to transfer from. If we don't make room for transfer to happen, it will not happen. So this is what we're gonna do right now. We're gonna do a little experiment. If you have a device with you, I would like you to scan this QR code, or this link that you see on your screen will be shared with you in the chat in a moment. If you scan the QR code, or if you open this link in another page, you will arrive at a page that looks like this. A page that will ask you one question. What are the challenges that our students may face when learning? And I would like you to enter your information, but listen to my instructions. I only need you to enter 2 words. So this is going to be a test of how effectively we follow instructions. 2 words. And the first word should be a verb ending with ing. For example, reading instructions. We already have 2 more. Interpreting data, formulating questions. So our question is, what are some of the learning challenges that students face in your subjects? Let's brainstorm now. I will give you some time to enter. Very good. Oh, this is beautiful. I'm going to give you 15 more seconds. And let's stop right there, please. Now I'm going to ask some of you to turn on your mics and tell us what you think. And I'm going to use different facts of my life and the way that you are organized on my screen to nominate you. So apologies if you don't feel ready to talk and you are chosen. So the first thing that I'm going to do, the person that is going to share with us the first reflection is the person that falls on the number of siblings that I have. I have 7 siblings. So that means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Darshani C. Would you mind opening your microphone? So Darshani.
Yes.
Look at the data that we have collected in this exercise. Okay, so we can see that making connections is the one that has accumulated the most opinions. Do you think that, what's your opinion about creating a PD session to talk about how we can help students make connections from subject to subject?
So could you repeat?
The question, what's your opinion about having a PD session in which we find strategies to help students make connections?
Maybe we can have a group discussion
Mm-hmm.
wherein if the child is not comfortable, we can also give them some writing material where they can write how they feel about the subject. And we can then look into that, and maybe we can arrange the sessions according to that. So maybe if we know how a child feels about the subject, we can actually help him out more, because that's how we can make connection. Because when we are studying, a child may not be ready to learn certain things, but if we connect first with the student, they will automatically come to us, opening up more. So, there are some people who are very good at making connection through verbal communication, while some are good at making, something like written communication. So we should keep the channel open for both written communication as well as wherein a child can open up. So we can actually connect in that way.
Okay, thank you very much. You based your opinion on communication, and as we have seen, there are a lot of strands in all the subject assessment criteria that relate to communication. The next teacher is going to be that person who falls on the name of the birthday party that I remember the best, with the most wholeheartedly feeling in my life. And that is when I was 11 years old. And on my screen, the person is in number 11 is Barsha Bat. Barsha, would you mind turning on your mic? Can you hear me, Barsha?
Yes.
Barsha.
I'm not sure if I'm the right person. I'm Varsha Sinha. I think the second name was different.
I just asked her to unmute. Let's see if she's here.
Okay, all right.
Varsha? Oh. Hi, Varsha.
Hi.
So this is the question right now. We have changed. People continue to contribute, and I'm so happy that they continue doing so. We have reading comprehension. My question to you, Varsha, is why is reading important in all subjects? I mean, why should we care about reading in all the subjects, and why should we have collaboration that through which we encourage students or find ways to help students become better readers? How can we help students become better readers? Would that be a useful PD?
Okay, I'm sorry, sir, but in between your voice is a little glitchy to me, so I can't understand proper your question. Can you repeat, sir?
Absolutely, no problem. Why should we have a PD session in which we discuss how we can help students become better readers? A PD session in which all the subject groups collaborate.
Collaborate. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. Can't understand. Not able to.
No?
Can you write?
Don't worry about it.
Sorry, sir. Can you write in chat box?
I will write. I will type right now.
Thank you, sir.
May I, sir, if you permit?
Please, of course.
Yeah. So what I feel is language is the best way to express, your ideas and thoughts, your comprehension, what all they are comprehending. So first step to express their learning is to know the language so that they are able to express their learning well, be it a science, be it a mathematics, or any language, in fact. So they need to know the language first. And for that, to build the vocabulary, they should read. Reading is a key, where they can enhance their vocabulary, and then they would be able to express their thoughts and ideas in a better way. Suppose even in sciences, if they have to make notes, if they would not have a good command over the language, probably they would not be able to express their language. And by reading, they can enhance their vocabulary, they can, enhance their word bank. So reading is very important in all the languages. And we as MYP teacher, in fact, we all are language teachers. We all are English teachers, or any teacher where, so that, we can enhance the vocabulary of, our learners. And also, if we can connect with real life situations, then the child is able to learn very well. This is what I feel.
Thank you. Thank you, Vandana. That was very, very insightful and accomplished. Thank you very much. And also, if we can only imagine the different text types, the different information that students read or are exposed to in every subject, we will find out that it is a good idea for us to learn how other subjects teach reading.
I'm sorry,
not
there is
do reading, teach reading.
I sent my answer into the chat box.
Yes, thank you. And the answer was, okay, let me find it. Now I have to find it.
Yeah, Ruth, we can't find your chat. If you could repost it on the chat box, it would be.
Yes, and Ruth, you have an answer. You have your hand up. Yes, please, Ruth.
Okay.
Be nice.
Okay, I just thought of responding again to the idea of language, because sometimes certain words mean different things in different subjects. So it would help if we come together and sort of make sense of what something means in one place and what it means in another. For example, in literature, when we say illustrate, and when somebody in art says illustrate, we could be talking about different things. Or when we say make a connection in science and make a connection in language, we could be talking about different things. So it might help then maybe to try and bridge that gap so that students can understand what those words mean in the different subjects.
Thank you, Ruth. That comment that you just made advocates so much for language learners, for inclusivity.
And to this, actually, if visual images are used to make connections, especially with children who have learning difficulties or reading difficulties, also it would help. For example, if we use graphic text, along with if I'm teaching a Shakespearean text like Macbeth and children are finding it difficult, I can use the graphic text which is also available alongside. So children are able to connect better.
Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for your insights, and thank you to the listeners too. Listening is also a way of communicating, and we know it. So with these ideas that we have a source and that word cloud, imagine the different teams in the school, teams made up of people from different subjects. If we know that these are struggles in our school, how can we as a community skills commonly use this? Is linked to assessment criteria strands. Imagine that we are having a Zoom call, okay? And then I break you into different breakout rooms and I ask you these questions. How do mathematicians, how do scientists, how do geographers read? If you are a teacher of these subjects, you think about your answer, okay? And then you select your strategies with other subjects. So then we share them and we have a bank of strategies, and we know that if the background of a text that we use is geography, here are some skills, some strategies that we can use. if the text that we're going to use requires the students to do some mathematical thinking in terms of literacy, here are some strategies that we can use. There is so much information about how we can help the students, not only in our subjects, but in other subjects in the assessment strands, my friend. And I happen to think that many times the assessment criteria and the assessment criteria strands are treasures that remain hidden only in the subject. They're not treasures that are benefited from across all of the subject groups. What we are discussing right now attack directly the standard of culture. So if we are thinking about a way to enhance learning, considering the assessment strands, we are definitely shaping the way that we design teaching and that we design learning in our school, which directly speaks about our culture. And this is a connection that we cannot deny. The most explicit and intentional we do it, the more it will show as part of our identity. The more it will reveal to parents, this is how we do the MYP. This is who we are. The more reasons that we will have to understand why we are part of this institution, the more clarity that parents will gain when they choose our schools. And then they will not misconstrue the way that we do assessment, the way that we impart learning. And all of these things that we are doing, my friends, is an example of teaching for transfer, which is an ATL skill that is below thinking, but I think it applies to every other skill, that applies to any factual knowledge, that applies to any conceptual understanding, and that was part, or I think that it's still part of interdisciplinary thinking. And this is one of the reasons, one of the facts, or one of the practices that is promoted in the MYP. This is one of the aspirations that we should have. And if you don't mind, I will encourage you to take a look at this book if you're looking for ideas. One of the takeaways that I had from this book that was interesting to me is that the key to transfer is comparison. Normally, when we think about transfer, when we think about skills, conceptual understanding, factual content, we try to go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper within our subject. But we may oversee the fact that sometimes the answer, the opportunity is on one side or the other. So why not look at Lang and Lit? Why not look at INS? Why not look at the arts? Why not look at PHE? Why not look at mathematics? The answer may be there. And this is how we come to the end of this reflection of my friends. So what can we weave with 8 subjects, with 32 criteria, with 120 plus threads? How many handkerchiefs can we weave for the times when students work so hard that they need to wipe off their sweat? How many scarves can we weave for those moments when students are cold and they need some warmth to keep them going? How many gloves can we weave for those times when students' hands cannot go on anymore? They need just some love from our side to keep on going. And what elements of our culture would our tapestry showcase when we use all of these colors, all of these different type of threads, and shape a tapestry? This is the end of the presentation, my friends. And I just want to ask one last question. Every time we're always asking students, we're always encouraging students to move on, to work hard when things are difficult, when they don't understand. How many times do we give that advice to ourselves when things are difficult for us? The answer is in the intention. And I hope that this reflection that I shared with you has encouraged you a little bit to be curious about every gift that exists, that lives in MYP documents, in MYP practices, in your peers, in your colleagues, in your culture. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rafael. That was a fantastic session, from IDU to Strands to assessments to, it was really power-packed. Thank you so much. And I am sure this is definitely going to change, the way we design our units, the what, why, and how of how we design our units. Thank you so much. Thank you.
No, it was my absolute pleasure. If any of you is interested in the slides, you can find them in the link that I just shared with you. I have shared the link in the chat, and you may find any other goodies that may be of help to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rafa. Thank you for agreeing to do this for us, really. Thank you.
No. It was my absolute pleasure. Any chance that I have to feel that I am back in Mother India, it's a chance that I treasure. So thank you very much, Anshu, for bringing me back. I am slightly younger again.
Yeah, and our school, we have the most amazing chole bhatures in our school. So once all this is over, we'd be so happy for you to come to Pathways Noida. Thank you.
I will definitely put that in my agenda. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for being great listeners and being great thinking partners. I wish you the best in the next sessions in the job alike. Thank you so much.
Thank you. To the participants, after this power-packed session by Rafael, we have our core sessions, which is beginning very soon. And as you know, there are 3 parallel sessions going on. So please join at the links that you would have received. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Could you please message the link for the course session, because I didn't receive the link for the course session.
We'll post it in the chat also.
Yeah, same here. I have not received
same
any.
The chat box.
Please share the link.
Yeah. Could you please share it once again?
We haven't received through mail.
You will just do that. Okay.
Cannot see, ma'am, still. Thanks.